The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Best Practices webinar with NYAPT, the future of school transportation, what to expect. We're going to give everybody about a minute to file in. We'll be back and we'll get this thing started. Hello, everyone, again, and welcome to today's Best Practices Navigating Uncharted Territory webinar. Our topic, we have a new topic today, the future of school transportation, what to expect. Before we bring in our panelists, I want to invite Transfinder President and CEO Antonio Civitella on to say a few words. Welcome, everybody. Tony.
Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. I was looking at the calendar. Do you know that's 2 weeks from now? It's Thanksgiving. I know, right? We look at all the things we could be thankful for, and we should be thankful for everything that's going on in this industry. Thanksgiving is always such a big event in my house. Being from Italy, we do the traditional turkey and everything else, but we also add the Italian stuff on top of it. So if you ever come to my house or any my family member, don't bring tight pants. Make sure you bring loose pants because there's going to be a lot of food, and pace yourself. There's going to be a lot more. So just to give you heads up on that, but obviously on a serious note, I'm grateful and thankful for everyone really in this industry and everything's going on. So thank you to everybody. And obviously thanks to today's panelists. And really thank you to NYAPT for partnering us and really joining together here on creating these resources and these webinars. They're so important. The feedback we're getting and how it's positive, and just like what Rick just said, we got a new topic today. So I just want to feel great about things. It's coming together. The holiday season always makes you feel good. Food always makes me feel good too. So I just want to let you know how excited I am to be a part of all these things here. But it's a little bit of reminders here about our Transfinder Cares Act, how we have a way that we could get software in your hands. There's a lot in there, which means we could figure out how to come up with a payment plan, make it more affordable. We know that budget has become a big topic, of course, with all things going on. So you want some more information, please email us at marketing@transfinder.com, and love to talk to you guys more about what this means. And we're doing a lot of things about that, but we will try to roll this out to everybody, whether it's a client or a prospect that wants to onboard our solution. Please get a hold of us. We created this so that way we can make it affordable. We can come up with a payment plan, whatever makes sense for you guys, split up into multiple calendar years. So for you guys. And lastly, I have to remind everybody that these webinars are always recorded. You can watch them anytime. You could go off our homepage where we have best practices location, and there's so many great things. Again, it's transfinder.com is our homepage, and there's so many things there. There's a lot of resources. And again, thank you to everybody for just giving us so much since early spring. We have so much information. We have so many webinars out there, and some of them are great to watch to see, holy cow, look how far we came. So those are always a good indicator. But let me stop talking because we got a lot going on here today. I want to introduce the NYAPT president, Ted Nugent. Ted, thank you so much for everything you've done for New York State and really as a leader here in the area. Now, again, I want to thank all the panelists here for taking time today and really discuss this next step here. So thank you, everybody, and let's watch and learn at least one thing. We'll talk about it at the end, what cool thing you guys learned, all right? Take care.
Well, thank you, Tony. I want to thank you and Transfinder for partnering with us with NYAPT and bringing out this information to the folks across New York State and across the country on the best practices and things we can do to grow in transportation and to serve the kids that we transport every day. And that's what NYAPT is all about, the safety and transporting our kids. So thank you for partnering with us. And Rick, thank you for being our moderator today to keep our program going and get the information out to everybody. I'd like to introduce today's panel. First, Denise Towne. Denise is the Transportation Director at the North Colonie Central School District here in New York. Randy Jerreld is the Transportation Director at Mohonasen Central School District here in New York. And we should have Jim Loveless hopefully joining us from the Ball Chatham School District in Chatham, Illinois. So we'll bring all those folks on board. And Rick, I'll turn it over to you to get our program going.
Thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to today's discussion. And these are just great conversations we have. And I think we all, like Tony always says, learn at least one thing. And then you just think about how much you accumulate when you do that. Before we start, I want to tell the attendees, all of you, thank you for joining us today, and you are part of this event. So, we are monitoring the questions as they come in, and even though we have a list of questions we're going to get through, your questions will go right to the top of the list. So as soon as we get them, I will bring them before the panelists. So please don't hesitate to type in that area there where you can submit a question and you can either be very specific, like you have a question for specifically Denise, Randy, or Ted, or just for the panel at large. That would be great. Before we get into our discussion, I just want to read, kind of another rip from the headlines. And these are all like within literally an hour or two of each other. And you kind of see a theme here, unfortunately. Salt Lake Tribune has this headline: 20 more Utah schools will shift to online learning as they have more COVID-19 outbreaks. The Minnesota Public Radio, more Minnesota schools halt in-person classes as COVID-19 cases rise. The Detroit Free Press, Detroit schools halt face-to-face learning because of COVID-19. And there's a local story that came out recently about a positive story, I think, somewhat, that there's a new interactive map that's tracking New York school districts' COVID-19 cases. And I want to talk to all of you about that and how you're utilizing that, if you are utilizing that. Researchers at Cornell University have developed a new interactive web-based map application to track coronavirus cases within each school district in New York State. It's the tool, for those of you listening in who are interested in finding it, if you're not aware of it, it's called the New York State School District COVID-19 Tracker. It's developed by researchers, estimates cases by geographic boundaries, socioeconomic factors, and demographics, including children living in poverty, people with disabilities, and other topic areas. So that's the world we live in. And we are seeing numbers climb, I know, in our area of upstate New York. And I will say, we said this before off camera, how you folks have really mastered the art of flexibility. And so I just, really, we thank you. You truly are heroes, and your team is. So before we get started, I want people to know a little bit about you. So I'm going to start with Randy, then Denise and Ted, and whenever Jim pops on, we'll get him in on the conversation. If you could just tell us a little bit about you, your job, your role, and then give us a sense of your district. Maybe how many students you transport. Are you rural? Are you urban? Whatever kind of descriptor you can give us, and then we'll get into our questions. So I'm going to start with you, Randy, and go to Denise and Ted.
Okay. I am the transportation director at Mohonasen Schools. We are a small, kind of a rural, not a rural, but a suburban area outside of Schenectady, New York. We have about 3,000 students in an 8 square mile area, so we're fairly densely populated, even though we're a small school district by most national standards. But we have sort of a mix of, we're right on the border with Schenectady, so we are becoming more and more urban. Our demographics have changed greatly over the last 10 years. The suburban, we're still considered suburban, but not so much. We have sort of an urban area of our district, and we even have a little rural area that goes out into the Pine Bush, which actually isn't all that rural because it runs between Schenectady and Albany. So, so we're kind of a hybrid model of in terms of the demographics of a school district.
Great. Thank you so much, Randy. And Denise? Denise, I think you're on mute. I'll go to Ted. We'll come back to you, Denise. Ted.
Okay, it just clicked back on.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. Believe
All
me.
right.
Okay, we talked about flexibility, right?
Right. Yeah. For some reason, so I'm the director of transportation for North Colonie Schools. We're a suburban district that has the worst cell service ever. So I was connected before and it kicked me off. So anyway, we are just outside Albany, New York. We're in the Capital District. We have an enrollment of roughly around 6,500 kids, of which right now we're transporting right around 3,000. So we had a lot of families opt out of transportation for this school year. Am I gone again?
You were, now you're back.
Okay. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, so we're right outside the Capital District. We border Albany and South Colonie and lots of other school districts. Much like Randy was saying, our demographics are starting to change over the last few years. We're getting a lot more diverse population, which is great. And we have a lot of development that's going on, so we're constantly finding ways and places to put all of our kids that are moving into our district.
Great, thank you. Yeah, there is a lot of similarities between North Colonie and Mohonasen, and so there's some commonality there. Ted.
Well, I'm from the Coxsackie-Athens School District. I'm the transportation director. We're in a rural area. We're based in Greene County down in the Catskills. We have about 1,200 students. We have about 22 buses. Transport right now about 1,000. That's pre-COVID. Now, as Denise just referred to, a lot of our families went remote. That's a big challenge for us down here with technology and get out in the hills as far as internet service and cell service. So we're about 79 square miles. So we're cover a big area to pick up those kids. So that's part of our challenge.
Before we get deep into the conversation, we have a poll question I'd like to pop up real quickly. It's about budgets. And so while the poll question is up on the screen, will come up shortly, and we ask for all of our attendees if you could take a second and take that. I'm going to go and just ask our panelists who are on a little bit about what their budget looks like for them, and what their number one issues that they're facing is going into the new year. So Ted, I'll start with you and then I'll go to Randy and Denise. What's your budget look like going into next year?
Yeah, budget is obviously a big
is routing software, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, and is upgrading software part of your plan?
Well, budgeting is a big concern for us. Right now, I think all of us across the state are dealing with the state aid reimbursement issue. We're not sure where that's going to end up. A lot of our districts have lost state aid for their budgets. So we would love to increase what we have as far as our routing software and get some of the newer technology that's out there. We use what we have, try to use it to the fullest. But budget is an issue for us as we move forward with all the new PPE and cleaning materials and all that we didn't anticipate.
Sure. How about you, Randy?
Yeah, much the same as Ted. We are. We have a tough time. I mentioned our changing demographics. the state aid formula still uses the 2000 census for our wealth formula, which when we were a much more wealthier district at that point. So we struggle every year with a gap in state aid and the fact that, we don't want to raise the tax rate because we don't have people who can or want to pay it. So it's every year is a challenge. This year is going to be especially difficult. And then also, as Ted said, we've kind of, with hours to salaries and such, we've increased driver rates about 20% over last year. And then you hear the governor talking about cutting 20% in state aid. It's putting us in a squeeze. And, if we do have to shut down at some point because things continue to get worse, it puts a lot of things in play in jeopardy, not just upgrading software, but also even being able to buy buses next year. They might not put a prop up, because you worry about that, the optics of that too. So yeah, it's a big concern. And I guess we won't know a whole lot till January, but it is a big concern.
Thank you, Randy. And how about you, Denise?
I'll echo what they're saying as well. Obviously budgets is a big concern for everybody. We've made a really conscious effort to already start looking at those things, and like we chose to not replace 3 people that had retired. So right off the bat, we were down 3 full-time positions from what we've had in years past. And one of the folks that works in our office, she's an amazing router. So thank goodness we have her, and we're able to work together and, transport fewer kids on buses, but also at the same time have fewer routes. And, I'm new to North Colonie. I had worked here previously, but now I'm back. But my last couple of years, I had worked in very, very poor school districts. So I guess I'm more used to penny pinching and tightening my belt. So we've really taken a hard look at our spending overall on all facets, and we'll continue to do so to try and be as stretch our dollars as far as we can.
So Denise, what kind of roles did you allow to kind of retire out that are not being filled? And how do you backfill people who they were still performing a function? So how do you backfill? But first of all, what were those roles, and then how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so we had 3 drivers and 1 bus aide retire, and basically, the only thing we kept from our previous routing scheme was stop boundaries. We went from scratch for everything else. We didn't want to redraw a million boundaries. But yeah, the way the routes are put together, the way things are tied together, we found efficiencies in our non-public transportation, where instead of having 20 some odd buses dedicated to just non-public transportation, we're now bringing them in with our first group of students in the morning and doing a transfer at one of our public schools as opposed to one of the private schools in the district. So just by starting in a clean slate almost, we were able to piece things together much differently than they had been in the past. But through all those things, we were able to not replace people who were retiring.
It is amazing how you can, how creative you can get when you have to, when your back is against the wall.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before I forget, Bridget, by the way, I want to introduce Bridget Moore, who is running our back end. I'm very grateful for her help. You want to walk through the results of the poll?
Yes. So pretty evenly split here of the folks who answered the poll. 56% say yes, budget is the #1 issue they're going to be facing, and 44% say it's not.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
I won't make any voter recount jokes or anything like that about our poll. So this is an open-ended question. I know it's like it's a loaded question, but how has COVID changed things for you in your office, your school? Just give us a sense of, and it's probably even changed maybe from day one to today. So I'll let anybody answer that in any order they want, but just how are things changed for you? All right, I'm going to pick somebody. I'm going to go Randy, Ted, and then Denise. Randy, how have things changed for you? In your district, how you doing things?
Well, it changes a lot in terms of procedure. I mean, obviously everybody's got to wear a mask in the building now, and that's a big change. And you got to remember, a lot of our people are older, and it's a big deal to them. And you just you almost made a political joke there, but with the fact that politics is sort of a piece of this whole mask thing too. So we have people who don't believe in it necessarily, and then those who are very serious about it, and then people in the spectrum all in between. So it's sort of like being a cop trying to make sure you have your mask on, and we have masks right at the desk where they sign in, so if they come in with a mask, here's your mask, and then making sure they do it on the bus. There's optics of that too. Parents notice if a driver's not wearing a mask, or they're wearing it down, or whatever it happens to be. So yeah, a lot of that kind of thing. But certainly, the whole, the stations, and we've put some places where people should stand, and the driver's room is smaller. We have less tables and chairs set out, so kind of like the people who maybe really need to stay all day can stay there, but the rest of you should kind of come and go when you need to. So yeah, it's definitely different. We did a lot of what we call tailgate parties, or their little like kind of like potlucks, where people would bring in food, or we provide something, and and it was kind of a morale booster. But we haven't been able to do any of those this year because of the COVID situation. We certainly don't want to be sharing food. So a lot of different things, and I just think it's kind of taken a little bit away from the atmosphere generally.
Do they have to, the drivers have to take a temperature before they get on the bus, and are they taking temperatures of the students, or how are they doing? Are they still social distancing on the bus, or is that kind of gone by the wayside? Or?
We use an attestation. They have to attest when they come in, either on paper, or they have a thing that we got through BOCES where they show the phone, and it has a color of the day kind of thing. So and so is okay to get on the bus. But that's how they're doing it, and I guess they're doing it that way with the parents. So we're not taking temperatures of students getting on the bus, because we kind of felt that set up a whole lot of issues that we didn't want to have drivers having to deal with in the morning either. So we kind of opted away from that. Some districts do that. Some districts do it when they come in the building, and yada yada yada. But we have kind of gone away from the whole temperature thing and more toward the end.
And how about the school bus? I know some webinars we've done, they were kind of loosening up the social distancing on the bus a little bit. What has transpired on your buses?
We've tried to maintain one a seat. Obviously, if there's siblings, they can sit together. And on a couple of buses, we have some buses that can get pretty full from daycares and stuff, where they just keep adding, and we have daycare centers. We go to several in the district. So we kind of put them in a pod too, that they can sit together. They go into the same daycare together. They're probably, not wearing masks all the time. I'm just guessing. So we've done it sort of that way, but our numbers have been low, as has been echoed. We've had about 1,000 people opt for all virtual out of our 3,000. So, but some of them are trickling back. They've had the opportunity. Now it's the second quarter, and a lot of them are starting to, let's say, I want to go back to on the bus and in person. And so we're seeing sort of an increase in that, not a huge increase, but an increase. So I don't see a big increase factor in that at this point.
Okay. Ted?
So I'll try to catch a couple of those that you asked here, Rick. So our kids are not doing temperatures before they get on the bus. We have the self-screening they have to send in. When they go into, before they go into the buildings, our staff are at doors taking temperatures prior to them entering the building. As far as our seating, we are 1 per seat is what we're using right now, unless they're in the same household. That seems to be working pretty good for us. If we have to, if there's a child that doesn't have a mask or can't wear a mask, then we obviously increase that social distancing and we work that out. So some of the biggest challenges I think that I've seen with COVID coming in, I'm a one-man operation. So I don't have a staff with me. So being out the time that it's taken for the tracking, we're constantly in communication with our nurses of who cannot, we call it our no-fly list, who cannot be on the bus or who they can't pick up in the morning, communicating with our drivers, with our dispatch center, and getting that information out.
Who's on that list and how do you get that list?
So that is our nurses and our COVID coordinator. They update that. They get all those things from the parents that do that self-certification for the kids in the morning as well as staff. I'm part of that chain. So I see that as it comes in all hours of the day and night as our nurses are updating that constantly. And then I have a shared document, confidential document with the dispatcher to let the drivers know who can and cannot get on the bus. So that's a constant flow every day. That's never stopping. The time, the whole change of kids arriving, we've changed our whole procedure. Kids used to come to the buses, get there, the kids all get off the bus, and everybody just stormed the school. Now we actually, out there, we have to walk bus to bus and control that flow so that we don't have bunches of kids in an area like we saw on TV in our area here when things first started opening up in the hallways where everybody was out in the hall. So we try to control that flow. So that's kind of the challenges that we've seen, some of the adjusting operational standards that we have to do to keep things flowing smoothly and do as we can for social distancing.
Okay, good. Yeah, optics is, we just talked about that too. Obviously there's the security and safety aspect for sure. But there's also just the appearance as well. You almost have to go above and beyond to put people at ease. Denise, how about you?
We of course have a lot of the same things that we do. We've changed the traffic pattern in the bus garage. You can only enter through one door. You can only exit through a different door. We've moved some of the things throughout the building to reduce people congregating. We've pulled out seats. We still have a problem of every driver wants to be first. So no matter how many times we tell you don't come in until 1:30, everybody shows up at 1 o'clock, and then we're out there telling people to spread out. I think one of the things that we've done that I haven't heard too many other people doing yet, every one of our buses has a seating chart that our drivers are required to do a seating chart, assign a seat to every student, and then we hold on to that here so that if and when Department of Health needs that information for tracking and tracing purposes, we're able to provide that to them so they know where the students are going to be sitting and who's in close contact. We've tried to keep a very limited number of students on the bus, and as people change from remote to in person, sometimes we have to make a series of several shifts to keep bus numbers low. And thankfully parents are patient while we tell them, it's going to take us a couple of days to figure out the busing. Your bus is full. So, we have wonderful parents in this district, and they're very supportive and they're very understanding. And so we have a great community all the way around.
I know that some schools initially had a rule that, like, for the first quarter or for the first semester, you had to decide if you were going to be in person, or if your child was going to be in person or if they were going to be online, and that you couldn't switch until after that time period. But some districts we've talked to have relaxed that a little bit, but they still wanted a window of 2 weeks to get that student assigned to a bus. How have you dealt with that, change maybe in comfort level, which may be going back again now to, maybe I don't want my kid back in school as the numbers are rising again, but how have you dealt with maybe a change in requests from parents? I saw you nodding your head.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing that. We're in our transition right now. Our next change is for November 30th. So all that surveys are coming back from our parents. And we're seeing about a 50-50 split as far as the ones that are going to go remote from now and the ones that want to come back. I think a lot of it has to do with, as we said earlier, what technology those parents have. Some are finding they don't have good service where they need to get their kids back into where they can actually learn it and have that available to them, where they don't have good internet. So I think we're seeing about a 50-50 on our next cycle.
Okay. Anybody else?
And yeah, if I can chime in on that's one of, I think, our biggest concerns. So our semester ends January 29th. And so, if we're going to extend into a hybrid situation, we know that there's, from our point of view, a significant number of people that have indicated they'd like to get back into class and back onto busing come February 1st. So, one of the things that we're working with our administrative council is if that's going to be the plan, are we doing another survey? What's that going to look like? Are we going to have to add buses? So that's something that's our biggest concern. And on the flip side, the other thing that we've been doing is we're keeping 2 routing databases live at the same time. So we have one, if we go back to what.
Okay, you went mute on me again. Sorry. Can you hear me? We lost you again, Denise, the sound. So can you? Okay, so here's a question from Frank, who wants to know if COVID has affected the availability of drivers and DAs, and are you getting applications for those jobs if you have those openings?
I've had some pretty serious problems. In fact, I've had to cut 4 runs, and I feel blessed that we are in this model that we're in right now, because I wouldn't be able to do that if we were in a regular model necessarily. I just cut 2 regular big bus runs because 2 drivers resigned.
Wow.
And literally I have 1 person in the pipeline. And this morning we just shot a promotional video to try to attract new drivers. So we are not in great shape at this point for people. So just going back to what Denise was saying about adding runs, like they asked me to add runs. I was like, forget it. There's nobody to drive them. And I just got to take a breath this week because we cut those runs. So now my mechanics are actually back in the shop for the time being until we have a lot of people out again. But at least now we can have a fighting chance against absenteeism. And, we do have people. I just had a driver coming back from quarantine today, and I have an aide on quarantine right now. No positive cases yet, but obviously they're either suspicion that they might have it or they've been exposed to somebody who did. So those kinds of things.
Anybody else want to talk about the availability of drivers and DAs?
We've in the last, just this week alone, we've had 7 people submit applications. It's mind blowing. And we had our communications department send out a community email, put it on their website, and then they're like, oh, and we put it out on Twitter. I'm like, okay, can you really put it on Facebook? Because our demographic, that our target group doesn't use Twitter. So just between the community email and the Facebook messages, we have 7 people that have submitted applications. So we're hoping that at least some of them will be moving on to the next steps.
Well, Denise, those that you don't hire, can you send them over to Randy?
if we're not hiring them, he won't want them either.
Fair enough. Ted, were you going to add something?
I think we're holding our own at the moment. What we're seeing is more of a challenge, and not only on our buses, but also in our buildings, is trying to find TAs and aides and monitors. People don't want to come in, it seems, with everything going on. The concerns be either health or whatever. They don't want to come into a building or be on a bus and take that chance.
I didn't ask this question. I probably should, but has anybody actually had COVID cases in their schools, and how has that, any specific incidents that you've had to actually do something in response to that?
Nothing for us here.
Great.
Knock on wood.
One of our elementary schools was closed by the Department of Health for 2 weeks because it was deemed to be a cluster.
So what did you do in that case? How did you I just think about the nightmare that must have been for you.
Knock on wood, it went okay for us. So our elementary schools, our K through 6 students, our K through 3 are housed at their home elementary school, and 4, 5, and 6 are housed at the junior high school. So all of the K through 3 students for that school just were home for 2 weeks. We still transported the 4, 5, and 6. So other than the afternoon bus running a little early, it wasn't a huge impact for us at all.
Okay. How about you, Randy?
Well, we had probably the well-publicized case of the administrator that got COVID, and we closed right after the first day of school. And so that definitely presented some challenges for us, because I had to put together I'm kind of the router, but I put together separate runs for our CTE program, our VOTEC or VOCES program students, because they could still attend. So we had to go pick them up at home instead of like they usually do, come into school and get the bus. So we had to make those runs for a week while we were closed. So again, it was like a adapt on the fly kind of thing to try to make everything work. So that was the only thing. Other than that, we've had a couple of students with cases, and they've quarantined some people around it. Like I said, one of my bus drivers was quarantined because his son had to be quarantined. So the district just said he didn't come in, even though the county really didn't quarantine him. So we lost him for a week.
Wow.
But other than that, no crazy impacts on us.
Yeah, we heard the story a couple of weeks ago about somebody just mentioning that they were going to get a COVID. They weren't feeling that good, and they were going to take a test. And just by saying that, he pretty much had to leave right away, get a test, and basically, I think he had to quarantine for over a week as well. So, how do you deal with that? You want to obviously encourage the health of your staff. Is that I don't know, have you had to deal with any issues where, I don't know, how do you deal with somebody who's not feeling well, but it may or may not be COVID? Do you just immediately just say everybody needs to go get tested, or do you say stay home for a couple of days, see if you're feeling better, and come back? How do you deal with a specific situation like that?
I mean, it's hard. It's a fine line because, there's a lot of things out there that aren't COVID that people get this time of year. But anything, basically, we're told now that everything that's an upper respiratory situation, they're supposed to go get tested and stay out until they can come back with a negative test and no symptoms. So it's tough. It's tough when you're really short people too, that, these things are kind of like daggers. But, I guess it's something we got to deal with. It's part of the environment we're in now.
How do you, and anyone can jump in on this, keeping morale high, or trying to get it to be high. How are you doing that? Again, when you watch the news every day and you see the numbers going up again, and, people, and you do have an older demographic that's a driver. So how are you able to, and how is morale, number one, how is morale on your team? And then how do you try to keep that morale up? I'll start with Denise, go to Randy, and then Ted.
So one of the struggles for the drivers that we hear back from them is the mind-numbing amount of changes that we have. So now you have to wear a mask. You can only pick up, few kids and all of that other. I think we have such a fantastic group of people that work here. So they're generally pretty positive for the most part. But our my assistant director Amanda, who opens up the garage every morning, every single person that comes to the window that she hands keys to, it's a bright and shining good morning to every single person. And just like we tell the kids that that's an impact for them in their day, I really think observing and seeing it morning and afternoon that's an impact for the drivers. I often send a weekly email to everybody and, we made it through another week, things are going great, and, just reach out to them in that sort of way. So, that's what we do. And I know they also feel supported by all the administration in the district as well. So. That's
good. That is really good. And sometimes, I one time had this job, not where I am right now, by the way, because I'm very happy. But it was newspapers can sometimes be tough. I used to work in newspapers for 27 years. It's like an old man. And there were times when I would literally run up the stairs, take 2 steps at a time, and put on this, I'm going to be happy. Even though I wasn't really feeling super upbeat that day, just to say, and there is something about, I don't know, it sounds like acting, but it's like, I'm going to be up. I'm sure that what's the name of the woman that opens up the bus garage? Her
name's Amanda Cutter.
Amanda. So I bet Amanda, maybe she's always happy, but maybe there are some days that she goes, I got to put it on. It's showtime, right?
Yeah.
So good for her. Randy, how about you? How is morale and what do you do to try to keep it up?
I think it's generally good. And like I said earlier, we can't do some of the things we normally do, like have some of those get-togethers and such. But I think one of the things that has helped morale, I think, is the fact that, I know in some districts they're driving all day and, their tongues are hanging out at the end of the day. But in ours, the runs are with the smaller numbers of kids. They're shorter. We added a tier, so they have 3 tiers now instead of 2 we used to have. But they're short runs, they're lightly loaded, and there have been a lot less discipline problems, which is one of the things that really tends to bring drivers down. We've seen minimal, I think I can count them on one hand, the amount of referrals we've had this year. So I think that, and the fact that they're getting paid an extra hour a day for that too, I think it doesn't hurt. So I think there's a lot of things in the world bringing them down, but I'm not sure in our situation that the job is bringing them down at this point. I think it's as good as it can be at this point.
That's great. That's good. And Ted, how about you?
I think you touched on it, Rick. I think even as much as we're burdened in our leadership roles and the things that we're burdened to do every day, I think we have to set that tone, put that positive vibe out to our staff and let them know we're there for them. We start the day off. I mean, I think every one of our districts, the drivers that we all have are there. Most of them are there for the kids. They're there to do what they like doing and they enjoy doing, and that's getting the kids back and forth. So I think that's a big step in what we face every day as directors. But set the positive example. You got to set the day off right, because if you don't, it's downhill from there.
That's right. Yeah, Tony has this expression that goes back to his father and back in Italy, that when the little rooster crows, Ted, you probably have heard this a million times already. When the little rooster crows, the big rooster has already sung. And basically, your team is getting their cue from you, and will oftentimes mimic that as well. So that's a good point, and I think that you know, when they know that they're on a mission, I think that, you know, I do feel like what you do is a calling, and you know, the safe transportation of kids and that anxiety that parents may have putting their kids on a bus. You know, I mean, I was thinking about this, like, so, you know, I have my daughter is 24, my son just turned 23. I don't know how that happened. And I'm like, but I remember until they were 4, only people I knew ever drove them. And then all of a sudden they're in kindergarten and I'm putting them on a bus. I don't know this person at all, complete stranger. And not only that, but they're not getting individualized attention like they were getting with, like, when Grammy was taken care of. And I'm like, so, but yet, you know, soon enough, what the bus driver becomes like part of the family, you know, and that trusted person that you know that they're looking out for them. And so what you do is so critical to allay fears, and so it trickles down. So you guys are the leaders, and then your drivers, and then the impact they have in the community. I mean, one of the things that I think people missed, you know, come March and April when the schools were closing, was they missed their bus drivers. Remember those parades that were happening? Just to kind of, they missed their teachers, they missed their coaches, they missed the drivers. So tell me about your, and I think you all have a good relationship with your, correct me if I'm wrong, but with your superintendents and with your school boards. But tell me a little bit about how you have a seat at the table, how you play a role in decision making, at least feeding input, and maybe even some advice if somebody is on this webinar that can't relate to that because they don't have a seat at the table. We tend to bring this question out periodically because it is so crucial what you do, and how that needs to be part of the big equation when you do have, you know, all the headlines I read earlier. You know, that has an impact. You know, that has an impact on transportation. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with your school board and your superintendent, and how to get that seat at the table. I'll start with Denise.
So I can't say enough good things about my superintendent. The first day of school, he's here at 6 o'clock in the morning, greeting every person by name. Hi, Rick, how are you? Hi, Ted, how's it going? He's so engaged and so involved and so open to everything in the district that it's really wonderful. We have an administrative council, and when we knew that we were going to be opening in some sort of a hybrid fashion, we took the number of buses we have, the number of seats available, and put together a bunch of different scenarios as far as the transportation wise, what we can offer, and you know, through each one of them, we all talked the pros and cons, and they didn't go with our #1 transportation option, but they went with, you know, the one that they thought worked best for all the kids, and which is the way it should go, to get the most in person for all the kids. So yeah, everybody here is really engaged with each other. They're really supportive, and they listen to all of the things that you have to say.
How did you foster that relationship, or how do you strengthen it, or if you don't have that relationship, any suggestions on how to build that bridge?
So I think, you know, I'm always very I'm very open, and like when I'm thinking something through, I don't have any problem calling and saying these are the things that we're thinking, and I provide it to them with information to say, you know, this is how I think we can get it done. I'm not one of those people that just says, oh, it's just too hard, we can't do it. You know, we really think it through, and I think I think they appreciate that. And that was, you know, I'm relatively new to the district. I started in January and we closed in March, you know, so I didn't have a lot of time to really build that and foster that. So thankfully for my benefit, it was there already.
That's great. That's awesome. Randy, how about you?
Well, I too am lucky and work for a very supportive administration, and they do bring me to the table when we had our reopening committee.
That's great.
I was part of that. You know, and I think they understand that, you know, you can have all the different models you want, but if it doesn't jive with the buses and the buses can't do it, if it's not physically possible to have, you know, all the buses at two schools at once, so to speak, you know, you can't do that. So they definitely look for the input. And I know when I was having all my anxiety, you know, basically from the time we closed till the time we opened, because I was wondering how we were going to do all this. And so I sent to them a lot of scenarios and created these things. We could do this, we could do that, we could do this. And, you know, I literally created 4 different databases in Transfinder with different models and presented the different models to them and what we do. And this is how this would work. This is the pros of this. This is the cons of this. And they actually ended up deciding on one of the models to use that would, you know, jive best with what they were wanting to do as well. So
that is great. That is
so
great. It's added work.
Very,
a little more work on your part in a way. Creating 4 models is a lot. I can imagine there's a lot of work, but in the end, you felt like you were a valued advisor and they picked one of the 4 solutions.
right. So it worked out well. And like you said, they're very supportive and kind of to piggyback on what Denise said, you know, you can't go at them and being like, oh, that's not going to work, you know, because they want to do something that they feel is going to work best for kids. So it's our job as transportation and the support of that to make sure that we can, if we cannot at all do it, we can find a way to make it work. So yeah. I think if going with that, then they're going to work with you more, you know, if they know that you'll make things work for them. And you could, then when you do have to go say, well, that's absolutely not going to work, you know,
right.
They'll listen to you more. You're always saying that isn't going to work.
Right. There's the difference between a naysayer and somebody who's just giving an honest critique of something and why, because you are the experts in what you bring to the table. I mean, that's just a fact, you know. But you're right. If you're always that person that can give a million reasons why you can't do something, that can get a little tiresome. Ted, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, communications is the key. You have to communicate, as with any kind of relationship. You got to be able to communicate both ways. As you just said, Rick, you as a transportation director is out there. You are the person that knows what's going on in the transportation side of it. You are the advocate for the kids as far as the buses. And not only the buses, campus transportation. We'll start to deal with all this parent transports. But you need to build it quick, because we don't know what's coming in the future. So as things start opening up, and Rick, you're led off by all the different headlines coming out, if you don't have that relationship, get in there now and start talking, because as we move toward the future of what's coming at us, you got to have that. It's going to be key.
Yeah, so being proactive, it sounds like, you know, all of you sound proactive, very proactive. You know, there's some people that like when the boss comes, they can't be found, they're hiding. And I always tell people, you don't want to be that guy. You want to be the guy, that or man or woman, that when the boss sees you, they hide because they're so tired of seeing you all the time. I kind of joke about it. But in all honesty, you want to be the one providing information, providing scenarios, being proactive. I mean, Randy, again, I just want to commend you, because I can only imagine the time it takes to create 4 scenarios and to do the pros and cons of each. Very valuable. And give them that option of seeing, okay, well, we're going to land on this, but at least you helped me make that decision with my eyes wide open. I got one quick question, and then I want to close with like your final takeaways. But the one question is, and it's a little bit of a, you know, we're getting close to Christmas time here, I guess, but if you have on your wish list, if money was no object, what needs do you have for you and your team that you would love to have, if money was no object? I'll start with Denise and go to Randy and Ted.
That was the question that I had the hardest time answering. If we were in a hybrid situation moving forward, I would say more money in the budget so that we don't have to, so that we have more room to breathe, so that we have more room to transport more kids if they need it, or something like that. If we were in just a regular scenario, gosh, I don't know. Like, I don't like North Colonie is fantastic. So I don't know that we need anything else. Just keep everybody healthy and happy, and wanting to come to work every day, and wanting to do the best jobs that they can. So.
Okay.
I don't know, that was a hard one for me.
I know it's a tough question and it's a hypothetical. I try to avoid hypotheticals, but Ted or Randy, anything you want to add to that?
If money was an option. Go ahead, Randy.
Oh, okay. I thought of tablets, honestly, putting tablets on the buses, which would really help with knowing I'm in a driver shortage with substitute drivers, being able to get step-by-step directions on their tablet, and also with the contact tracing. Right now we're drowning in paper from attendance, and we have these huge stacks of attendance sheets that come in every week, and sometimes we've had to go through them. We've needed them for various situations that have come up. So they do need to do them, but having something electronic that we could pull on demand and give it to administrators when they need it would be really great in a COVID environment. I think it has benefit even going forward beyond that too.
That's great. We had a webinar a couple of weeks ago where some of the panelists said that this is one of those times, if you can make your argument that school boards, even though the budget's tough, that they might, because if it's COVID related, you may have more of an opportunity to get that approved. So, okay. Ted, how about you? And then we're going to go for final takeaways. Ted, anything on your wish list?
Money was no option. All the different things, the technology that we can make our drivers' lives a lot easier. Randy referenced the tablets, student tracking data. I mean, all the technology that's out there to be able to bring that into our districts and take that burden off of our staff. I think that would be the wish list.
That's great. And then, as Tony mentioned at the very beginning, one lesson learned that people, so sometimes it's that last thing you say that someone might remember. What's one thing? I'll go with Randy, Denise, just shake it up a little bit, and Ted, I'll have you close it, and then I'll give a couple of final words. Something that you would want someone to really take away from today's discussion that they might bring back to their staff, they might bring to the superintendent or the school board. What would that be? Randy.
I would say, well, obviously in this environment, to be adaptable. I think of myself as the great imitator, not the great innovator. So one of the things that was going on this summer is I was talking to a lot of my colleagues. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What model are you using? I didn't make up all these models. They kind of came out of talking to other people, seeing what they were doing, and then using these models and what's going to actually work in your district. Maybe some parts of a model might work in your district and others wouldn't. Again, being adaptable and flexible to the situation in this environment in particular, but anytime, because transportation is full of changes, always has been. So, and the times are changing.
That's great. There's Tony he's been sending out nightly notes to our team since actually March 13th. And last week during during the election, he quoted a lot of presidents, and I don't remember who said it. You might remember. It's a famous quote. But it's amazing how much you can get done when you don't care who gets credit. and I don't remember if that was Teddy Roosevelt, but one of the presidents said it. And your point, Randy, is a very humble one, but to say imitate, you don't have to, not everything, you don't have to always be the one to come up with it. But if I can get, people are probably more prone to talk when they don't feel like it has to be just my idea, And so getting ideas from others is great because you can learn from other people's mistakes too, which can save heartache. Denise, you want to give me a takeaway, and then Towne, if you're on, if you could give pop on screen, and we'll have a final takeaway from you as well. Go ahead, Denise.
So I think, because our jobs are so, we've got a lot on our plates, a lot on our shoulders. We have a lot of people that rely on us, depend on us. I really think that when we're out of the office, when we're at home and just on the weekends and whatever, we still have to be connected, but I think we really need to take time and recharge ourselves every weekend. Yesterday when we weren't at work, if we're not at our best, then the people that rely on us aren't getting what they need from us. I think, we have a lot of responsibility to make sure we're there for all of our people, but we also have to take care of ourselves so that we can be there for other people.
That is a great takeaway. Very good. Ted, and then Towne.
I guess the takeaway would be to collaborate, communicate. You're not in this alone. It's a team effort. We're all here to help each other, from the drivers right through all the directors. So it's a team effort to get this done. We'll get through it, and we'll be on it as we go into the future.
And I want you to know, that's a great takeaway, Ted. And just so you know, people who are watching this, one of the reasons why we've gotten such good feedback from people is because I think just that very point, Ted, to realize that their situation, it's not unique. And that they're kind of in it together. And so just hearing your voices, to be honest with you, and that you're making it and you're getting through it is a huge comfort to them and encouragement. So that's really good. Towne?
Oh, wow. Great stuff.
There's some words of wisdom here.
I've
already quoted you once, though. I quoted the rooster quote, by the way.
Oh, of course. I love it.
But go ahead. Give us a takeaway.
I'm going to go on with that. But let me tell you about something I hear all the time about the institutional knowledge, right? You guys have heard about this all the time, that, there's a lot of people are retiring. Holy cow, we're going to lose all this information. That's another topic. I'm sure you'll talk about it. But, guess what? We are you are reinventing the knowledge. So all that thing, oh my goodness, they're walking out the door, people are retiring, we're going to lose this. That's another topic. I'm sure you have that, Rick. But, we're reinventing some of this institutional knowledge. So therefore, it's, anything we did a few years ago. So I'm just hearing it, right? The collaboration, new things. And obviously, one of my father's other proverb, he talked about seeing people make mistakes, right? Learn from the mistakes. He talks about if your neighbor's house is on fire, run home with a bucket of water, which means be prepared. If your neighbor's house could be to catch fire, again, it's right. It's not literal. But if there could be an issue, your next door neighbor could have an issue, you could have it too. So be prepared. And honestly, what you do is you learn from each other. And that is something that there's no institutional knowledge that you could now, hey, I learned this 10 years ago. That doesn't matter. And I think that there's a switch here, which I'm pretty excited about it. So that's my take.
That's a great take. That's a good one. Yeah, I like that. The bucket of water one is always good because it is so valuable. That what was somebody else's maybe downfall, or you read something where there was an issue that happened, say, well, how do I learn from that person so I don't have to go through it too? So that's really good.
That's all about the institutional knowledge that you learned it throughout years. Well, guess what? A lot of stuff we don't have years of experience. So I feel like it just leveled everyone's playing field all of a sudden. So it's kind of cool.
That's great.
But
I want to thank all the attendees.
Ted, I want to thank you guys too. I know you want to do your thing, so thank you. Of course.
Thank you so much. And that's same thing. I want to thank our panelists. Jim came on, by the way. He had some technical difficulties, so we will get you on, Jim. I thank you for your willingness to join us. I want to thank again Denise, Randy, And Ted, thank NYAPT for your leadership through incredibly challenging times. You have shown a great light in this dark time. I want to also encourage people, because we love to get as many great stories as we can and share them. So like Tony just said, like Ted just said, in terms of collaboration, that and Randy talked about being the great imitator, which I really like that if we want to, you know, curate as many of these stories as we can. And again, you don't have to be a Transfinder client. You don't have to be a NYAPT member. But if you have something you've done in your district that you've had success, or a lesson learned, like Tony just talked about your house on fire, can we learn from it? Please send it to mystory@transfinder.com. We'll follow up with you. Maybe it'll be a white paper. Maybe we'll have you be on our future webinar. So please send that to mystory@transfinder.com. And then finally, we do these every other week. Well, 2 weeks from today would not be a great day to do a webinar, because that is Thanksgiving. So so I'm just going to ask you to stay tuned. We'll have an email go out. We'll have lots of blasts go out, and on social media telling you when the next one will be. It could either be next week, or we'll move it out to December 3rd. So just stay tuned for that. But until then, I hope you all have a very happy Thanksgiving, and I also hope you have a great rest of the day. So thanks again for everybody who joined us and for our great panels, and have a great day. Stay safe.
Peace. Peace, guys. Peace.